My name is Dookie Nacho, and I want to wish y'all a Merry Christmas.
This is Matt Prater. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas.
Well, howdy there, Bronco fans. Hope you had a great Merry Christmas. We're so excited to be here on this holiday edition of Bronco Planet and a playoff home field advantage throughout the playoff edition. Chris, boy, what a way to finish out the season.
Well, you blink and you miss the game. Against the, you had a couple of things to check off of that list, things to do against the Raiders, and they all were done before halftime. And see what you got in Brock Osweiler.
Yeah, exactly. You learn what the Packers learned when they lost Aaron Rodgers. You see Brock in there and you start thinking, boy, we sure need Manning around. And thank goodness he stayed healthy. So let's talk about this Bronco, team. We've been critical at times just because, we don't like to be homers and jump on the bandwagon on everything. But you look at that body of work at the end of the season, Chris, and that is a remarkable team, and the records to prove it.
Well, you know what the old man will say after he yells at the kids to get off your lawn. He's going to tell you that you're playing in the era where every rule is to benefit the offense, and that's true. But it's also been that way now going on 6, 7, 8 years, and we've never seen. We were just before we came on. We're just going through these numbers again, and these numbers are unbelievable. These are numbers that 3, 4, 5 guys have put together that teams would kill to have some of these numbers. There's going to be a time where we go back and look at this fall of 2013 in the winter, and that's the greatest offensive season we've ever seen.
Yep, 606 points. You see Manning, 55 touchdowns, 5,477 yards. And
unbelievable.
Was it scripted? I mean, sometimes you're hoping, hey, I hope this works out. But you knew they're going in right before half. They don't want to play him in the second half. They got a lead, but it just worked out. You're hoping Sean doesn't get too many yards so he can get the record.
And the great thing with Manning is go back and look at that touchdown, the last touchdown before the halftime, and Charles Woodson could have told you the exact play.
Yeah.
And he still can't make the play.
Yep.
It was like watching Jordan in his prime, where everyone in the building knew when the shot clock was running down, you knew where the ball was going to go, you knew what he was going to do, and you couldn't stop it. And that's where they are right now with Manning.
So let's talk a little bit about Peyton Manning, sporting the little 18 shirt here. Chris, this has been debated for all season long, and I know you're probably going to go with the offseason stuff. We'll get into that. But this has got to be, if not the greatest quarterback to ever play the game, one of the top 3 ever. Yeah. Where do you end up on that side of the debate?
I've always, I maintain I will always be an Elway guy. I will always be that John Elway was the greatest quarterback that's ever played the game. I have always discounted Joe Montana because for his entire career, a majority of his career, he threw to the greatest player we've ever seen in Jerry Rice. Yep. Montana, no doubt, was a great wide receiver. Go back to those first 3 Super Bowls that Denver lost and look at who Elway was throwing to. And then tell me he wouldn't have rather been throwing to Jerry Rice. Elway will always be number 1. But what Manning does, Shad, is so unbelievable because there's so much other than just throwing the ball. Yep. This morning, when I woke up this morning and I see that the Vikings had fired their coach, and I see on Twitter that they're interested in talking to the Broncos offensive coordinator, and I thought, well, how's Manning going to interview while he's still playing?
Yep.
Without a doubt. The guy from the shoulders up is far and away the best quarterback we've ever seen.
Extremely accurate. He's been there, and I think you go to your point earlier, and here's what you go. You look at quarterbacks that have won Super Bowls, right? You got your Trent Dilfer, you got your Phil Simms. Those guys can't hold the candle to a Dan Marino. So do you say they're a better quarterback because they won Super Bowls and Marino didn't? Now, some of those teams that Manning had weren't good enough to be in the Super Bowl. Some of those Super Bowls those teams Elway had weren't capable of winning a Super Bowl. But you throw Terrell Davis in there, you give him Shannon Sharp and Smith and McCaffrey, all of a sudden a pretty tough defense, all of a sudden it all comes together. I think Peyton Manning has to be the best pure passer that I've ever seen in the game. And I'd like to say Elway has been the most exciting, dramatic, come-from-behind quarterback to ever play the game. So I think we can have our cake and eat it too. We run this show, so why not?
We can say whatever we want.
But I think that's where I've kind of enjoyed watching the precision precision of Manning, the accuracy, the understanding of the game, but there's nothing like watching an Elway game knowing you're never out of it. Didn't matter how bad he played, didn't matter the position that Reeves put him in, you knew he would come back and find a way to win. So we've got a couple. How rough is it for us here in Denver to have two of arguably the best quarterbacks to ever play the game right here in our backyard?
The only thing now is I'm curious a year or two from now how Aaron Rodgers ends up with the Broncos. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not sure how it's going to happen, but I am looking forward to it.
Well, people would have said you're crazy just 2 years ago. Say, hey, you'll have Wes Welker, you'll have Peyton Manning. We wouldn't have believed it. And look it all came together. What a great team. What great resources around it. You look at Demaryius Thomas finishes over 1,000 yards, fourth best receiver in the NFL from a stats perspective. You look at Decker, 5 of the Broncos with 10 touchdowns or more. You know, you look at how do you stop 47 touchdowns coming from those guys? How do you look up there and you got Julius Thomas, who's just blossomed this year, and then you got Welker on the other side, and you got Thomas and Decker. Oh, and by the way, you got Noshawn Moreno, and when he's done with you, then we bring in Monte Ball, who just looks better and better every week.
You're 1,600 yards out of your backfield. Spread them out 4 wide with 47 touchdowns among those guys. Throw in another 10 from Moreno and 1,600 yards from that two-headed monster at the tailback. I think universally the concern going in now is, can they stop when it comes down late in a game, in a close game, can they get off the field defensively? The season, the Super Bowl, hopefully, will come down to that question. When they need to get off the field, can they do it?
Yeah, and I think what you got to do is get out there, and they've struggled at times doing this, get out and get that lead. Yeah. Get yourself in a position where you can blitz, you can try more things, because if you get in a shootout, that's great, but you better pray that Manning has hit, not Kyle Orton, not Romo. You're going to hope that Peyton Manning has has the ball in his hand at the end.
Absolutely.
So great things. So with great things, it's only appropriate time to bring out our favorite great thing of all time, the prize monkey.
Nice.
Prize monkey, that monkey's funky.
Say what?
Prize monkey, that monkey's funky.
Oh, that monkey's funky, especially over the holidays. And we got a special treat today. Oh, you're going to like this. Wes Welker, who probably could have played, I think, this last week, but why rush him back? Let's get him healthy. And we're not even going to roll out a contest. We're just going to award someone, and it's Melissa Martin. Melissa Martin has been with us at Bronco Planet for the last 4 years, done a lot of blogging, and what's more important, Chris, over the holidays, she makes this homemade quilt that she puts together with all these Bronco shirts. Phenomenal. Gives it away so we can give it away as a prize. That's the kind of care this lady's got. So, Melissa, you give, we give. Coming right back at you. Thanks for being a diehard Bronco fan. All right, Prize Monkey's done for this week.
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about the coming weeks. We've got the playoffs rolling out. Who's worrying you in the AFC? Our road to New York.
Yeah, you look at the lower four, and there's no one there that really, to be honest, there's no one there that really frightens you. Cincinnati looks good at times, and then you balance that with 4 interceptions from Dalton. Come playoff time, that's not going to win. That's not going to win a football game. It really, Shad, if I hope for anything this coming week, it's that Phillip Rivers gets injured. I mean, he's the one guy, the only guy that I ever pulled to actually get injured in a game. To be honest, I think what you and I and what everybody wants to see is New England coming here, and I think to be realistic, that's what it comes down to. The 2 great quarterbacks of this generation, it's here. Last year we felt we were in a position that game should have been pulled out. That should have been a Bronco win, and I think we're looking at the same thing again this year.
Well, it's been a long time, Chris, since we've been in the AFC Championship game. Seems like whether we had the miracle finish by Tebow against the Steelers, we had a bye, and then we get in last year. It's been forever since we've had someone like a New England come in and win it all. It feels like all the pieces are in place. Yeah. Sure, the defense isn't playing quite the way they should, but boy, Danny Trevathan coming along, looking good. I think Nate Irving doing a good job. Sure. And this team has been resilient. You think about losing Von Miller, think about Ryan Clady, you think about the coach being out, you think Champ most of the season. This team has really grown together, and I don't even know what you do with these guys from a contract standpoint. Sure. Von Miller, you couldn't have planned anything worse except for maybe prison. They could have.
Which wasn't far off, let's be honest.
Yeah, so there's nothing worse that guy could have done. I mean, the guy gets out, he has his substance problem, then he tries to fix it
Yeah,
and do a side deal with someone. Then he forgets stuff that just shows lack of maturity. You know, hey, I'm driving without my license. Hey, I didn't pay my things. And then he gets hurt. I mean, it couldn't have gone any worse for Von Miller this year. So what kind of contract do you give a guy like Von Miller?
Someone will max him. Someone will give him a huge deal. And that'll be up to
Raiders,
John.
maybe?
And that'll be up to Elway and Matt Russell and those guys to figure that out. But Shad, to your point, there's such a long list of guys that you got more out of this year than you thought you would. You know, Sean Phillips, you know, came here. Let's be honest, you thought maybe a 5 or 6 sack guy, doubles that. Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie, you got much more out of him than you ever thought you would. And I think, to be honest, I think the biggest surprise to me was no Sean Moreno.
Yeah,
you know, you go back a year ago. A year ago, it's like, can we get a 3rd round pick for this guy? What can we get for him? And now that's a key integral part to this offense.
I'm glad you brought up DRC because he's got to be a priority. I think just a 1-year deal we signed with him. You know, I know Von's important. I know it's coming up, but, you know, guess what? You're winning without Von Miller. You may be heading to the Super Bowl without Von Miller. DRC, we learned firsthand how important it is to have somebody out there on the corner, especially with this pass-happy league. DRC important. And how about guys like we saw Woodson? Woodson got offered to come to Denver. Said, no, I think I'll go with the money.
I'm good with the Raiders.
And now he's sitting at home playing, you know, Minecraft, I'm sure.
Well, it's interesting. You bring up a real interesting point. Are there guys, and this is 4 months down the road, 5 months down the road, are there going to be guys at that stage in their career who are willing to take a little bit less to come here? This team is built to win this Super Bowl, 48 and 49. 50, maybe, you know, we may be looking at a retirement party by then for Peyton Manning, but I've got to believe there are guys that are going to be willing to take a little bit less money. The one that everyone is going to be talking about is Decker. Decker is going to get offered #1 receiver money, but what if it's Andrew Castle that's throwing him the ball? That's not 14 touchdowns. You know, is it worth staying here for a little bit less money to play with one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time? I'll do it. I'll take a little bit less.
Well, I appreciate that, Chris. Well, I think Decker has come in and proven that he does deserve more money. But they also have to sign Demaryius Thomas, which you know is going to be big money as a premier receiver. And so I think those are going to come up. And we got some big things coming up this offseason, without a doubt. If you turn your back on the Broncos, Woodson, how about Elvis Dumerville? How you feeling about your fax machine now, buddy? The Broncos are moving on. A lot of those guys that said no are sitting at home, and maybe they're okay with that, counting their money while they're at home. But if you're into winning, Denver's a place you ought to be. Well, we appreciate you joining in. We get a bye week, so we'll be kicking back. We may do some fun things during the bye week just because we like to get in the studio and talk some Broncos. But we appreciate you tuning in.